Okay, so we talk all the time about AI taking our jobs, right? But what if it's coming for something way bigger? I mean, what if the entire idea of a company, as we know it, is on the verge of disappearing? Yeah, that's the wild future we're going to unpack today.
So let's just start with a thought experiment. Just imagine for a second a world where all the businesses you know today, poof, they just vanish. Not one or two, but the whole corporate structure. What happens first? Well, the first domino to fall is going to be all those B2B businesses. You know, the consulting firms, the marketing agencies, the software-as-a-service companies. Their entire business model depends on other companies. So if their corporate clients are gone, their whole reason to exist just evaporates overnight. And it gets worse, because with no customers, there's no money coming in. And with no money, you can't pay your employees. Suddenly, a massive chunk of the economy's entire payroll system just grinds to a halt. And there you have it. That's the last step in this crazy chain reaction. The very idea of having a job in the way we think about it, being on a company payroll, it starts to completely fall apart. And this isn't some slow, gradual change. This is a full-on systemic collapse. So, what on earth could cause something this radical?
Let's dive into this world without jobs. The real catalyst here isn't AI getting a little better at writing an email or something. No, this is about AI completely dismantling the fundamental economic logic that has held companies together for almost 100 years.
The piece of tech at the very heart of this whole revolution is something called the AI agent. You really got to stop thinking of AI as just a tool, like a fancy calculator. Instead, start thinking of it as a coworker you can direct. That shift in thinking is everything.
And these agents, they're not just some passive chatbot. They can talk to each other, coordinate complex tasks, handle money and payments automatically through code, and basically automate almost all of the operational and admin work that keeps companies afloat today.
So picture this, a single person, right? They have a brilliant idea, but instead of needing to go out and hire a whole team, they just direct a swarm of these AI agents. They can tell them to build the software, run the marketing, handle all the back-end finance and legal stuff, literally everything. They basically become the conductor of an AI orchestra.
And this leads to an absolutely mind-bending economic reality. When you can spin up thousands of these digital workers for pennies, the cost of adding one more worker, what economists call the marginal cost of labor, it plummets to basically nothing. But if that's true, well, it brings up an even deeper question.
Why do we even have companies to begin with? It sounds like such a basic question, but the answer is the key to this whole puzzle. And funnily enough, it comes from an economic theory from all the way back in 1937.
This is it. This is the big idea. A guy named Ronald Coase won a Nobel Prize for this. He basically argued that it's just a huge hassle and really expensive to constantly find, negotiate with, and manage freelancers for every single little task. It's just way cheaper to hire people and manage them all under one roof. This extra coordination cost is the literal glue that holds firms together.
But here's where we get to what's called the Great Flip. For almost a century, Coase's theory was rock solid. Doing things inside the company was cheaper. But AI agents completely invert that logic. All of a sudden, coordinating a swarm of agents out on the open market is practically free, which makes the old, clunky corporate structure the expensive and inefficient option.
Let's just break down why that is. The cost of finding and telling an agent what to do? Next to nothing. The cost of them actually doing the work? Minimal. Checking up on their performance? Totally automated. Paying them? That happens automatically through code. All that friction, all the costs that made companies necessary in the first place, they just disappear.
And this leads to a pretty logical three-step process for how the company dies. First, companies try to adapt. They shrink down to just a core group of human strategists. Then they start to fragment into smaller, more agile units. But ultimately, the economic logic is just relentless. They completely dissolve, replaced by individuals, each directing their own personal swarm of AI agents.
Which, of course, brings us to the most personal and, let's be honest, kind of unsettling question in all of this. If all the doing of work is automated and basically free, what's the economic value of a person? What are we even for?
The source material we're looking at today puts it so bluntly: if execution is free, just being competent is no longer valuable. Think about that. The whole idea of just being good at your job kind of loses its economic meaning when an AI can do it perfectly for almost nothing. The bar for what a human needs to contribute is suddenly raised dramatically.
This new world creates a massive shift in what we value. It's no longer about competence or execution. That's the how-to-do-it stuff. Instead, all the value gets pushed upward into the things that machines can't easily replicate. We're talking about truly original ideas, unique vision, good taste, and that critical human judgment of knowing what to do in the first place.
So the basic unit of our economy changes. It's not an employee inside a company anymore. It's a single human who comes up with an idea, they define that idea as a clear goal and intent, and then they unleash their network of agents to go make it happen. That's the new economic loop.
Now, it's one thing to talk about this endpoint, but getting from here to there is not going to be easy. This future leaves us with at least two huge unresolved questions for society. And believe me, this transition won't be gentle. And here are the two hard truths we have to face. First, the transition is going to be painful. You can't just flip a switch and expect a global workforce built on wage labor to suddenly become entrepreneurs and creators. There's going to be massive disruption. And second, there's the distribution problem. If these powerful AI agent networks end up being owned by just a tiny handful of people, power is going to concentrate in ways we have never seen. And in that world, your brilliant idea might not be enough to earn a living.
So we're left with this. And it's not really a question about technology anymore. It's a question about civilization itself. For all of human history, our societies have been built around the scarcity of labor, of coordination, of knowledge. So, what happens when all of those things become abundant and essentially free? That is the massive question this future is forcing all of us to confront.